two, one. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 9th episode of the iGaming Next podcast. Today, I have with me Fredrik Stenstrom, the General Secretary of NBO, to talk about the Norwegian gaming climate at the moment. So, hello, Fredrik. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Pierre, and thanks for letting me attend the podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I like the positivity. So tell me, Fredrik, can you start by introducing NBO a little bit? What you guys are doing, a little bit on who you are as well, and what your past is.
Yeah, I'll do that. First of all, NBO is the trade organization set up here in Norway from May last year. From four of my members, it's Gaming Innovation Group, it's Stenstrom Group, Come On, and Kindred Group. Ahead of that, I was working for the monopoly in Norway. Actually, 20 years going back for Norsk Rikstoto, the horse racing company in Norway. And from 2013, I was the commercial director of that company. And I think maybe the interesting part is that the last 2 years, I also was responsible for introducing the responsible gaming tools for Rikstoto at the time. We can get back to that later. Going a little bit back, I think it's some of my colleagues in Europe, there are some lawyers and so on the backgrounds. My background is from the industry. I started working for ATG in Sweden back in 1990. And at that time, I was also, at the Täby Galopp, the gallop track, and the Solvalla, the trotting track, and taking bets from the punters. It was a great start, in my career to learn how to take, verbal bets from punters with Quinella and Trifecta. You get a hard start.
Yeah, you're well versed in the gaming sector. Then basically starting on the monopoly side, and now obviously you switched over and founded NBO, if I'm not mistaken, right? And what would you say that you guys' targets are at NBO? What are you working towards?
Well, in Norway we have, I would say, quite harsh environment related to the monopoly we have. And of course, you know of a lot of the process has been going on in Norway with payment blockings and broadcasting law changes and so on, and trying to force Norwegians not to use sites abroad. The payment blockings was all the way back from 2010 actually. The job for NBO is to help the politicians and the regulators to understand that we have a better way to regulate the market in Norway than doing with the monopoly. So that's basically my job. We are going to have an election in 2021 in Norway, and I'm working towards that. Of course, it's very important, like in Sweden, it was the politicians that made the decisions of going from a monopoly to the licensed market.
Is there any political side in Norway that is more pro, so to say, a license system than the other?
Absolutely. I think that's a good question. And we have the Conservative Party, Høyre, is I would say moving towards our side. They actually went out in VG, the largest newspaper, like a month ago, 2 months ago, and said that they are working for a licensed market in their party program. We'll see though how that ends up, but at least they are looking into it. We have the Center Party. They are in the debate now. They've been engaged because of the horse racing industries and with the Rikstoto have been very much involved regarding loss limits and how the sports are going to be funded in the future. We have of course, the Progress Party are very much with us, and we have the Liberal Party. Today, the Minister of Culture comes from the Liberal Party, but still, they are. He's following, of course, the Parliament in his questions.
Yeah, so right now, I should know my neighboring country's politics better. I'm sorry for that, but is it which coalition is running the country at the moment?
Well, we have a coalition with the Conservative Party today. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, it's very interesting. So let's take a step back a little bit. So the Norwegian market is a very peculiar market. Let's say it's a monopoly, and they have taken the very controversial stance, like you touched upon just now, to try to ban and block IPs and bank transfers and try to take it that route. But naturally, that doesn't seem to be very effective. Would you say that the politicians are aware of that they are trying to fight a losing battle?
Well, they've been fighting this for a long time, and we have in Norway we have the setup is quite interesting because we have, of course, Norsk Tipping that are well known, and they are not just offering a lottery anymore, but they have sports betting, they have casino, they have VLTs out, in the kiosks and so on. But you have the horse racing, Rikstoto, my former employee as well. We have also the bingo industry. The bingo industry is fairly large in Norway, and it's not like bingo like in the old days. Bingo is like there are VLTs out in the shops. And the funny part about the VLTs and the bingo industry and the VLTs actually is that they are actually licenses, given out. Right today there are 46 bingo licenses given out.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about that, because we spoke about that before we started here. It's basically that you, as an entrepreneur, you can apply for a license to run a bingo hall. And why is that, and how is that working in general? Would you say?
Well, the bingo industry is built up with it's actually 3,200 NGOs connected to the bingo industry, and so the entrepreneurs needs to be connected to an NGO.
To an NGO.
To be given a license, and then technical entrepreneur has bingo halls. In Norway, there are about 240 bingo halls across the country. The interesting thing is that these entrepreneurs have 3.6 billion kroners in brut turnover. And at the same time, also Norsk Tipping has VLTs out in its shops, and that's called Belago. So you have two separate bingo VLT terminals out in these areas, and run by two different companies actually, or Norsk Tipping and these 46 other technical entrepreneurs.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so the state is running, let's say, part of the operating bingo halls, and the entrepreneurs are running a part as well. Is there a reason behind why it is like that, or?
Well, this comes out of the history with Norway having a lot of the VLT terminals back in the days before 2007 when it was banned. And after that, it was opened up for Norsk Tipping again, and they came with what they call multics. And then these Belago terminals are it's connected to that history. And the funny thing is about this is that actually, they have different rules for responsible gaming. Norsk Tipping has fairly, strong responsible gaming mechanisms on these terminals. You can maximum lose like 100 euros a day. But the thing, if you go to a terminal from the entrepreneur, you don't have mandatory settings for identified betting. You don't have loss limits, and you still have a lot of, cash in this environment.
Okay, so on that side, that can be an actual pretty abusive form of playing. Basically, when you play on the entrepreneur side, is that correct?
Absolutely, I would say that is a big problem for the state today, and the gaming authority to actually deal with this bingo industry. And I'm not against it. We are not against the bingo industry.
No.
We want them to, and the NGOs. This is very important for them. And out of the entrepreneur bingo, they receive about 170 million kroners, 70 million euros. So, which is a lot of money for these NGOs. So, and these people, the customers out in the shops, they enjoy it. So, absolutely.
And yeah, so this is touching a little bit on a different question as well when it comes to, as you're mentioning, the NGOs are obviously keeping themselves afloat a lot because of the bingo halls. But if we look at another aspect of this, which is kind of TV advertisement and advertisement in general in Norway. So correct me if I'm wrong now, Carl Fredrik, but is it the same thing when it comes to sports in Norway? Like until now, has it been legal to sponsor a football team, for example, as a gaming operator?
For Norsk Tipping, it has been.
Okay, but not for unlicensed casinos, basically. Because I know that at the moment there's talks about banning advertisement in TV and things like that. What are your thoughts on this when it comes to banning advertisements from foreign operators?
Well, we just had a law passed here now in Norway, and from January 2021, the gaming authority will have the tools for. They think they will have the tools for stopping this. Commercials sent from broadcasters from London. I think this, the way of working with this is, backing, into the future. It's I mean, it's now, with the COVID-19, you see how people actually, go online and do not watch TV channels, on a regular basis through your distribution channels like earlier. And we have to look, how the technology opens up the borders. I think we have to look at what the customers want. Rarely there are, in these discussions, people actually talk about what the customers actually do. And the gaming authority estimates it in Norway that it's actually 250,000 Norwegians gamble abroad. And I say that, I can follow those numbers. We know it's even more than 250,000, but still, okay. And let's, look into that. And okay, how should we actually regulate this then in the future? The gaming authorities say that, these people, they lose about 2 billion kroners a year.
That goes outside of Norway, obviously.
Outside of Norway. Yeah. That's the figures from the gaming authority. And we have to take this in aspect. And, coming to, we are having the monopoly in Norway out of one reason, and that is about, protecting players. And I would say we do not protect players from gambling problems in a good way today. We look at this on separate verticals. We have Norsk Tipping with their tools. We have Rikstoto with their tools. We have the bingo industry with no tools. We have 250,000 people, playing abroad on different sites, and each site and each company has their own tools for responsible gaming. But we need to implement something like GamStop in the UK, or Rufus in Denmark, or Spelpaus in Sweden. Actually really works. I know it's in Sweden they talk a lot about Shekarabi these days. But I will actually, quote him on one thing he said in November to the paper Dagens Industri. He said that, we managed to help 44,000 Swedes to stop playing away 125 million kroners just in 2019. And I agree. You know, that is a good way to do it, handle it, and we can do that in Norway as well, and give all these customers a good tool to prevent themselves. And this is, you know, when I talk to the responsible gaming, I would say, like for instance, Problem Gamblers organization in Norway. They look into this, and they actually went out like 2 months ago in the paper and said that we need to, the monopoly do not work anymore. We need to look into other ways of, you know, regulating in the market. They don't say that the licensed market is the correct way to do it, and that's actually, you know, they did a smart thing. They said we're going to use 12 months of looking into different models, and then they will get back to, you know, and see what they think, how we should do it in Norway.
Okay, so the problem gambling organizations are actually kind of doing their own investigation to see what they feel would be the best way forward. I mean, that seems like a very like powerful approach, so to say, like towards the politicians. I would assume like that would be the best way to kind of get their attention, so to say. Why is it, do you think, Carl Fredrik, that in Sweden this is so high on the agenda in society and in politics? Denmark, they introduced their licensing system years ago. Why is it that in Norway it doesn't seem to gain the same momentum or same traction politically?
We have two monopolies left up in the Nordics, and we have Finland and we have Norway. And the Norwegian monopoly is very, very well connected to the sports federation in Norway. And the sports federation, they receive 2.8 billion kroners directly from Norsk Tipping.
But that was the same in Sweden as well before the licenses. Svenska Spel was a massive contributor to the
sports. But that was through you know, sponsorships, deals, and so on. But you have a direct connection with the sports federation, and we say we will contribute to that. We will contribute, and we have put out a report from Menon Economics saying that we can contribute with 2 billion kroners a year if they, you know, open up with a licensed market. Actually, last year the sports federation had another economics company called Oslo Economics looking into this, and, you know, try to devaluate the report from Menon Economics. And this shows, you know, how it is actually, that it's, you know, they are going back and forward and hitting each other with these reports in the head. But anyway, it's very strong connected with the sports federation, and this goes back, you know, from the time when actually Lotto was introduced in Norway. We are back in 1986, and where you have, you know, a split between the sports federation with the state, you know, with the net, you know, how it's going to be divided, and it's built up from there.
Okay, so you're saying that so based on the connection between the monopoly and the sports federations, that makes it less. From politics side, they are less enticed to do something about that. Is that?
Yeah, that is something I, you know, work with. You know, I need to convince the sports federations, the politicians, that we're gonna. The model in the future is going to be, we're going to protect players in a better way, and we're going to make sure that it gets, you know, the sports gets even more money than they do today. And we're going to do that with, you know, with taxing my members, like in Denmark, like in Sweden, and, you know, with the results from Sweden, you know, I must really say that, you know, okay, some things do not work quite well, but some things do work well as well in Sweden.
What do you think works well in Sweden? Spelpaus you mentioned already, basically to avoid players from blocking themselves on one site and then going to another. But would you say there's anything else in the Swedish regulation that works well?
Well, I think the beginning was it was working very well, and you let Spelinspektionen, being built up. The organization is established, and let them base, what they're going to do based on the facts and insights. But then after a while, in Sweden, you have the politicians, like Gustav said in your earlier podcast, that they start to interrupt, and makes this personal. I think an important thing for me to say in Norway, that is, we have the gaming authority in Norway. I have a lot of respect for them, and they're doing a good job. I know them from earlier, and I'm I'm convinced that they will actually, handle the process of, re-regulating the market in Norway. Spelinspektionen had some problems with this in Sweden.
Yeah, and I mean, most recently, I think yesterday it was approved now that they are imposing the restrictions on deposit limits and things like that in Sweden. And like you mentioned, Gustav mentioned that this could even be kind of like a nail in the coffin for the entire licensing system in Sweden. Like how, yeah. I mean, when you now kind of promote that to implement the licensing system in Norway, is that kind of a fear as well? Like how are your how is the gaming market in general feeling about this? Do they want to regulate? Do they want to stay as it is?
It's the tradition of Norwegians is, we like it, to have it like it's always been.
Yes.
So we didn't even like Jan Boklöv and his style when he started jump with the skis crossed.
yeah, exactly.
We didn't like cross grading on skiing. So that's our history. But I think it's loss limits and deposit limits is a very important question. And in Sweden now you have the question about 5,000 kroners deposit limit going on a week, and it turned out being for casino, as I understand.
Yes.
We'll see how it's going to end up. I think it's going to come out today if it has not already done it.
Yeah, there's the rumor is out there, so to say. The rumor is in the news already that they are about to approve it. Yeah.
Well, in Norway, Norsk Tipping has a loss limit of 20,000 kroners a month. So as a Norwegian, you can maximum lose 240,000 kroners, 24,000 euros a year. Mm. And most people do not, have the economy to, lose that kind of money. I usually say that that is not a responsible gaming tool that Norsk Tipping has. I just call it that it's an insurance for the state operator. Because when you're going to regulate the market, it's very important that you understand how it actually works, and you need to understand the outside and the customer actually, spending money or spending more than 20,000 a month. And I can say that coming from the horse racing industry. And in Sweden, of course, I told my colleague Gustav that early that relax ATG and the horse racing industry, they're going to fight a 5,000 kroner deposit limit immediately because it's going to hit them bad. And that's not unique for Sweden or Norway. This going for horse racing, that's something that is across all countries. You have a certain group that spends a lot of money, and that's going for sports as well, and it's going for casino as well, poker and so on. And it's better to try to regulate this and deal with it, and make sure that you use source of wealth. Look into if this customer actually has this money that he wants to gamble for, and with today's tools we actually can do that.
Yeah, it's incredible the progress that's being made within compliance and and KYC and anti-monitoring
Exactly.
laws and stuff like this. It's progressing quickly. But what's your thoughts on just deposit limits and things? So when you lobby for a licensing system, how would you like it to look in Norway? What is your stance on the stop loss limits and deposit limits and so forth?
Well, I think a quick step into what's been going on in Norway lately regarding loss limits is that we have, of course, Norsk Tipping, as I mentioned, and we have the horse racing, and they have the gaming authority has suggested that they should implement a 20,000 kroner loss limit as same as Norsk Tipping. And they actually went out and last year and actually said that we cannot implement that because that's going to hurt the industry, the connection between the horse racing industry and the betting company, so bad that it's going to make them almost bankrupt. And the politicians listened to them. And they looked into, okay, let's see if we're gonna move Rikstoto to Norsk Tipping. And the decision came out in February this year, and they said that the Ministry of Culture said that we're not going to do that. What's coming now, it's that in this fall, we're going to have a new gambling law is going to come out on the concession. And that's going to be like a 6 months period of time, I would say. And so this is very difficult, but still my members and NBO, we embrace loss limits, but we also embrace the source of wealth and actually understanding that you need to protect all players, not just a group of them.
So what would you say, like, is there any other licensing system that you look up to, so to say? Is there any of them that you would like the Norwegian government to replicate or take different parts from?
Yeah, I think I will say that Denmark, they did a lot of great work in Denmark, and what they did there, that they actually the Spelmyndigheten, the gaming authority, actually spent time on learning the market, talking to all participants, receiving reports. And after that, they pulled back and studied them and put together, how it's going to actually work, and got it up and running from January 2012. And I must say that the Danes were, they were early movers, actually coming up with the idea of Rufus, the self-exclusion system, and what's actually other countries now are looking into. And it's the understanding of the balance between attractiveness and responsible gaming, and that balance is very important. And I think Spelmyndigheten has done a good job on understanding that, and they also let the companies actually self-regulate until now. I'm quite convinced that in Norway we will not have a solution like that. But
why is that? Why don't you think that is going to happen?
Because it's been going on now. We are living in 2020 now. It's 8 years after, and we have a lot of experience with responsible gaming in Norway. We have Norsk Tipping with the loss limits that do have, and that is something we. And even actually, with marketing as well, how that's going to work. So I think when the politicians going to, decide to move to a re-regulated market, we will have a more harsh or strict regulation than we do in Denmark back in 2012.
Yeah, no, I can imagine so, being Norway and all. I mean, it seems like the Norwegian government again they took this stance to in 2010 or so to this controversial stance to kind of block and try to avoid players from accessing foreign operators. But it seems still that the channelization is very, very high, if I presume.
Yeah, the gaming authority estimates the channelization to be 50-50 about, or 46-54. But let's say about 50-50 on sports and odds and casino betting.
And is there any trend in the channelization? Let's say from 2010 till now, has that changed anything?
For online gaming, it's been it's been increasing for my members, and the customers moving from offline to online, and the gaming industry in Norway is Norwegians do like to bet, and the result of the nets from the monopoly in Norway is about the same as in Sweden. And that with a double population in Sweden. So so you have it's very the offline market has been very well developed, I would say, with 4,000 betting shops for Norsk Tipping and the bingo and the horse racing and so on. So, but still, people are moving online, and going online is it's a totally different world.
Yeah, for sure, and again, it seems very clear that this stance to kind of hinder people from accessing sites is not exactly the way to go about it. So Carl Fredrik, then I have a question for you, the $1 million questions, I'd say.
Yeah.
If you now become the Prime Minister of Norway in the election 2021, what would you say? What would you say you would go about the current climate? How would you take the next step? Like, what would you say is a good way to change the regulation in Norway?
Well, I would say that. Thank you. Letting me be the prime minister.
Yes, yeah.
It's. I would give the gaming authority, together with the Ministry of Culture, the mandate to go into the market, understand the market, talk to all parts, and the companies, the interest, the NGOs, and so on, and giving them the mandate to re-regulate the market, and open it up, but it's in a responsible way. We encourage that all the time. It's in a responsible way. And do that. We're going to have an election from 2021, and we can do that from 1st of January 2022.
There we go. That's the spirit. Another interesting thing, actually, that I wanted to talk a little bit about now is we spoke about this before the podcast started as well, but the fact that on the poker side of things, so that's the world that I come from, from the early 2000s and so forth, and I lived through this era when Frode Fagerli started the Norwegian Championships, and it grew to become something huge in Norway. It felt like big chunk of the country went over to Dublin to play poker each year. But you mentioned that in Norway at the moment, it's obviously illegal to organize poker tournaments on a bigger scale. However, there is one tournament per year which is regulated and organized by a private company. It's like, can you talk a little bit more about how that happened? And
to make it easy, we have it is actually we have one poker tournament going on for a week, and we're about 3,000 to 4,000 Norwegians attend this tournament, and it's hosted by, or it is an NGO that is responsible for the application or for the license, and the license is for 3 years, and and this NGO, they need to connect with some professional parts that actually can kind of host the tournament. And that's been Party Poker and Poker Stars over the last 6 years, I think. And the funny part about this is that this is one tournament going on for 1 week. So my rhetorical question is, what do those customers or players do the rest of the year? How can you build up? And this is one of the largest physical tournaments in the world, coming to players, and you actually host that in Norway. That just shows the huge interest for playing poker in Norway, and it's built up from going years back.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because doesn't that open up the question, if this NGO can organize and can get a license for a tournament like that, why wouldn't the next NGO be able to get the license as well? Or
Well, this is regulated, and from the Ministry of Culture and the Gaming Authority actually handles this process, and it's on this tournament. The Gaming Authority, they are represented physical with people being there and supervising that everything, and it's not allowed to have any logos or like that for the companies that are outside of Norway.
Yeah, but it's interesting still, like if they open up to apply for this one license that came about 6 years ago, as you mentioned. Wouldn't that be a first step to then open up for more licenses to be applied for?
And that's that is of course a way to handle this, and and open up for like 46 technical entrepreneurs for the bingo industry. We can open up for my 4 members a license for them, going to sports and casino or entertainment bettings. But I don't believe in that model, because you always need to understand the total market, and looking into Sweden with you have like 100 licenses there now in total. How that's going to be in a year, it's difficult to say, but with the latest changes being implemented until the end of the year. But still, it's if you open up for 4 licenses, you're going to have a market outside all the time. And you're going to have marketing restrictions for the companies in the market, and you need to look at you need to define what kind of a channelization you actually want.
Yeah, exactly. What would you say? So we're running a little bit out of time, but I have a last question for you, Fredrik. Like, what would you say that you could learn from the Swedish licensing experience, the pitfalls? Is there anything you think that the Norwegian can learn from the mistakes that Sweden did, so to say?
Yeah, and that's not to act too fast. You need to base your changes on based on facts and insights, and not on feelings. I think that's one. And coming to betting or gambling, it's so much feeling in this topic. People have opinions about it. You either like it or dislike it, and it's not about that. It's about actually and understanding that this is a lot of people actually do. They even play the lottery, scratch tickets, they play sports, casino, poker. In Norway, you even have the recycling lottery. Going into all food stores, you can recycle your bottles, and you can you push the button, and it's a recycling lottery, and you can win 1 million kroner. So it's all over. So coming up to your question about Sweden, it's about spend time.
Yeah.
And from my learning, from my discussions with the Gaming Authority, they all say, we're going to make changes based on facts only, not on feelings.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think as well, I mean, looking into Sweden particularly, and being so close to Norway in types of culture and things like that, I think one thing that needs to be avoided, to avoid to get this to avoid to make the question political sometimes, is to try to keep culture on your side, so to say. And what I mean by that is, in Sweden, the culture turns so much against the online operators with the incredibly aggressive marketing that we saw at some point.
Yeah.
And this became a needle in the eye for the Swedes, right? And that's when the question turns political. And that's when certain ministers, try to score political points by consistently impose more restrictions and so forth. And I'd say, in Norway, you have something good going from the discussion. If I can summarize everything, you have something really nice going. You have this, NGO operated bingo halls, which are clearly something that society thinks is a good thing. You have this poker tournament, which is one of the biggest poker tournaments in the world. That is run by an NGO. It's a beautiful thing, and it gives back to society. And I think that that is a key as well, to keep the culture on your side, so to say, to keep promoting that by allowing a level playing field. It will give good return to the society in many different good ways, and that's something in Sweden that is much towards like the sports teams and stuff. The different teams are always struggling for money, and the foreign operators that are licensed is an important economic driver for them at the moment. So I would say, can you get culture on your side, get promoted, then the politicians will listen. And I think you have a good thing going.
We'll keep on working in Norway, and it's a less harsh environment now than it was a year ago. When I left my job in January 2019, my former boss, he went out in the media in front of the page and said, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that this guy gets unemployed.
Really?
We are good friends today, so don't worry. But still, it shows, how much feelings it is into this in Norway.
Yeah, interesting. That's why we are the diplomats of the world. So you have an argument like that, and then you become friends still after a while. I love it. Fredrik,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I think to summarize this, there's a lot of challenges ahead, but it seems like the market is changing, and there's a lot of things to work on, and hopefully towards something more positive. So thank you for sharing all the information and how the Norwegian gaming climate looks like at the moment. Do you have any closing words? Anything you want to?
Thank you. I would say thank you very much for having me, and we can have a recap like in a year ago, after a year, and see how it's going on.
Absolutely, let's do it, Fredrik. Let's do it.
Take care. Bye bye.